Hi everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's 2 o'clock. You heard this morning Ms. Dean talking about the importance of security metrics to measure effectiveness and outcomes. And so, on the same vein, we had a talk about measuring security outcomes and third-party risk management. So Stephen Boyer is here from BitSight Technologies. He's the co-founder and CTO of BitSight. BitSight provides evidence-based ratings of security effectiveness to help organizations manage their security risk. So, hand it over to Stephen.
Thanks, Chris. So this is a pretty small group, right? So we can keep it pretty intimate and back and forth. Really, everything here in this vein and some of this material I've presented in other forums is about measurement. How do we get to risk management? We talk a lot about InfoSec and blocking things down or finding vulnerabilities or whatever. But really, what we're trying to get to is better risk management. We all recognize that there's no such thing as a secure system, perfectly secure. You have just varying degrees of risk that you're managing. And for us, we believe very firmly, which is great to hear from Justine again, is that the industry, as we mature as an industry of practitioners, and we need to get to better metrics and measurement, right? And so one of the principal challenges in that is dealing with risks that are not just about yourselves, but dealing with what we call asymmetric risks, or we're dealing with a third party. So what I wanted to do is start with a little bit of discussion and some definitions. And these come, we're completely stealing from Dan Gear. If you know him, he's a local guy. He's written a lot about how do you measure, what kind of measurements do you think about. It's like, well, when you get started, what do you measure, right? And things like anything you can get, right? It's one of those, we'll mature as an industry around the kind of metrics and things that we're going to get. You kind of start there and then evolve into what the models are going to tell you to do, right? So, hey, we're going to measure these things. Let's get some telemetry, let's look at it, let's do some validation, and then iterate our models. And folks who again may know Alex Hutton, there's some of the folks in the security metrics world, and there's a lot of dogma around security, like you should, or thou shalt do this or that. And what we're really trying to do is introduce the science, right? So let's measure things first, let's understand what's working, and then kind of look beyond. And so really, in terms of risk management, the working definition that we work with is just taking deliberate actions to improve the odds in your favor. Right? You're not necessarily lock things down, just going to stop all threats or that sort of thing. Just, hey, what kind of deliberate action is going to take to tip the odds in my favor? And it's not so much to explain the past, but more to manage and to build it. Now, how do you go about doing this? But really, what there's is security measures. What can you measure to help you drive better risk management decisions, right? And the only ones that are interesting, and there are lots of security metrics, you can probably look at hundreds, are really the ones to help you do better risk management, to help you tip the odds in your favor. And so that's really the focus here. Well, what can we measure that's going to help us make better risk management decisions? So a little bit of a guiding philosophy around what we do in kind of in this talk is, if you don't have anything you can measure, you can't come to any sort of reproducibility. Okay? It's just randomness. If you can't get any reproducibility, you can't come to any sort of conclusions. You can't come to any conclusions where you have really no controls at all. But if you have some controls, well, then you're starting to get to better risk management and security. And so what we're trying to do is repeat this process. What can we measure? What can we get reproducible? What kind of conclusions can we come to where we can start to manage those risks a little bit better and tip the odds in our favor? One of the areas that I spent a lot of time thinking about are challenges of what we call information asymmetry. I'll give you a couple examples. One, you want to go buy a used car, and you want to know everything about that used car. You want to know what the accident's been in, all the other issues. The challenge is the guy selling you the car doesn't want you to know that, right? Because that may devalue what you can do. However, we've tried to develop systems to overcome that information asymmetry, one of which is Carfax, right? It's like, hey, get the Carfax, I'm going to try to look at all the information again and better tip the odds in my favor as I purchase that vehicle. The other one that we make an analogy to is credit ratings, right? Consumer credit ratings. It's driven by measurement, data that's collected by organizations, and there are some models developed. And now, debt issuers, underwriters, folks who are issuing mortgages, when a consumer comes to them, what do they look at? One of the things that they look at is the credit score. Right? It's something that they have been able to develop, that there's been a systemic risk management system put in place, and how they can very cost and time efficiently get information about a consumer to decide if that's a risk that they want to take on in terms of lending. Right? And so now the consumer, on the other hand, doesn't want to let them know about their bankruptcies, doesn't want to let them know about that student loan that they never paid. But you better believe the guy on the other side absolutely wants to know. And this information, that measurement that's taking place, facilitates those set of transactions. Now, Lifecore would love to consumer credit ratings. They're not perfect, a lot of imperfect data there. However, it's become a phenomenal metric for unleashing all kinds of applications, all the way to, if you wanted to apply for a credit card, you could probably do it while sitting here, right? And you could probably get approval within minutes, sometimes seconds, right? And that is because the bank has decided that based on that metric, and whatever they know about you, they can take that risk. And similarly with underwriting. So here, one of the challenges that we face and our customers face a lot is third-party risk, right? Which is what we're talking about here, which is I want to work with you, I want to either share my data with you, I want to connect my networks with you. How do I know how good you are on the other side? How do I manage that risk and tip the odds in your favor? That's a big challenge. And so typically, here's what happens. A wants to work with B, pick it, and so this is a small company wanting to work with a law firm, or a big company wanting to work with a cloud provider. So they want to work together. However, A is concerned, well, how good is B? Right? Are they going to lose their data? Is it a complete disaster in there? Do they have good processes? Are they ISO 27001 certified? Right? The challenge with it is they pretty much can only audit. That's really the only way they would know that, because we don't really have a good system for sharing this information, right? There is no equivalent of Carfax for this, right? And so what do? Well, they say, we're going to audit you, or we're going to force a questionnaire, or we're going to make you give us your SSA 16, SSA 2s, or whatever, and I'm going to make my decision based on that. The other problem there is, if B is of any size, they're getting hit up by all their other customers, saying, hey, we would like the same thing, which is varying B. If A wants to then make a decision between A and B, try to do apples-to-apples comparison, their only lever is an audit, right? That starts to get very expensive. And let's say for some reason, A decides to work with B, B's audit, because this world, and you guys are practitioners, so you know this threat landscape is very dynamic. Stay tuned, I'll show you a little bit about this OpenSSL thing here in a few minutes. Right, configurations, what was thought was good at one point in time is changing literally from week to week. And the software that people use or how people are executing is very dynamic. Where this is usually at best, what we see is people do these once a year, or really, literally most people are doing this upon onboard. Right? Hey, we sign the contract, we onboard you, and that's it, we trust you forever going forward. So really the only tool that anyone has in their tool belt is re-audit. And then the question is at what frequency, what are you going to look at? And you're all familiar, so I'm going to spend a lot of time on this. Third party has been a huge issue, even just over this last little while. Target, for example, is a major third party. And so a lot of sophisticated organizations they spend a lot of time and money training their people, and they feel like they're locking themselves down pretty well, although nobody's perfect. However, they see some of the biggest problems coming from these information asymmetries. I'm working with a law firm. I'm handing the law firm all the deal docs. I'm handing them all the M&A information. I'm handing them all my intellectual property. How good is that law firm? Because it better be at least as good as my firm, or we're going to have problems. And what we see is attackers are going after law firms right and left because, well, they don't have a SOC, right? And they don't have an entire security function, right? And so this is one of the big challenges that folks are trying to do. Then the question for us becomes, what do we measure? And then what would be an indication of how well people are performing? And so here, in these few minutes, I'm going to talk about, well, we looked at a bunch of companies, we measured a bunch of things that I'll talk about, give you some examples here. And then the question is, well, how are we doing as respect to anything else? Because most measurements are relative, right? It's very hard to get absolutes in any of these. But we looked at what does the financial industry, and I thought it was awesome just being said, in finance, they're far ahead. They're putting budgets against this stuff. They're executing, they've been managing risk a lot longer. Well, what do we do in finance? Well, we have indices, right? How is the market going? Right? What is one of the leading indicators for the market performance? So the S&P 500 is roughly 75% of all stock market cap-wise across all these different finance, industrial, consumer materials, telecom. Right? So they're trying to get at how are we doing as an economy, and that's and they weight it to try to normalize for size. to try to manage either your portfolio risk or investing or get a gauge for how well we're doing. So the question that we had was, well, how are we doing with respect to cybersecurity? And what can we measure that would give us indications as to whether how the organization is performing? One of which, in an information symmetric fashion, which is getting information from these organizations without them disclosing anything to me. So the way that we went about doing this is we looked at two different types of variables. We looked at configuration. How are these systems configured? Everything that we're seeing from outside. When we say that's an indication of their security diligence. How quickly, how are they thinking about their configuration? How do they do configuration management? How do they do patch management? How do they set up their systems? And we call that indications of security diligence. I'm not talking compliance. That's the last time I'm going to say compliance here. And then security events. What can we measure from outside the organization that would give us some indication to compromise, system compromise, and security hygiene inside the organizations? And I'll give you, some deep examples of each one of these. And I'll start with the results. The results are the S&P 500 with respect to cybersecurity is not doing that well. Okay, that's not news to this group. And you'll hear lots of people state that 90% of the Fortune 1000 has been owned, or two kinds of organizations, those that have been owned and those that don't know it. But now we're starting to put some numbers against this that I'd like to share with this group. However, what we saw is no sector is unique. It's pretty uniform in terms of everybody getting hit. There's a distribution in performance. Financial services is the best performer, but I'd say not perfect. And then these issues are persistent. And we see them over time as we look at these behaviors over time. For me, performance over time is really the best metric. Because you can scramble before the auditors show up, right? You can let things go, or you can still consistently execute on this, which is really hard for a large organization. It's really hard to keep the proper levels of risk for an organization. What we're seeing, though, what's problematic is what we call optimism bias. There was a report from PwC put out surveying executives. It was 75% of executives thought they had good security. Right? And so they're sitting there thinking, we're good. Right? And then when we look into the data, we see lots of problems. And so there's a mismatch here. There's a mismatch of perception. And I think part of what I thought was very interesting is like, how can we, as security practitioners and those who speak the language, communicate up to the business level, talking to the business level so they can understand, hey, there are some issues, and these are right, we need to address them. And for me, one of the best ways of doing that is with data measuring metrics. So that's where we're trying to hit here. But one of the key problems here is getting over this optimism bias. One thing that I think is it's fantastic in some ways, it's a tragedy, but the more of these breach disclosures that happen, these are becoming, this is elevating the discussion to the board level. And now the board is starting to ask these kind of questions. And the question is, how do you communicate that to the board? How do you talk about it in terms of risk to the business? And it's something that we focus on a lot. But I see some of this optimism bias fading, but certainly not fast enough. So let me look at a couple of these configuration measurements that are indications of what we call diligence. So the first one is around email. So you're pretty familiar, lots of spear phishing. Walmart hit one that impacted, had one for Walmart, a couple million people hit. There's a report that Verizon DVR that 95% of these APTs, these nation-state attacks, come through email. Right? This is not, exploiting some server flaws or anything. They just email in. Right? And then about 30% of these breaches came through some sort of social ways. 80% of those, of all the breaches that they saw, were through email. Huge infection vector. Right? And if I'm on the other side of a partnership or a third party, if I'm receiving email from a partner, I'm probably going to trust it a little bit more than from a guy in Nigeria. Right? And so you're going to think, well, what can we measure that's going to help us understand what diligence practices can someone put in place to raise the bar for an attacker? What was a very interesting statistic, and I have here the citation, Google looked at, it was 91.4% of all their email that they had classified as not spam was authenticated. Right? So it's like, that's a lot of spam. And they basically said, okay, here's stuff we know is not authenticated, so we have to look at it. But 97% of all mail that they had determined was legitimate was authenticated. Two ways I talk about authentication here is the sender policy framework and DKIM, which is the domain key identified mail. Are folks roughly familiar with those? Okay. So I'll go through just really quickly one that we looked at in this study for sender policy framework. So the sender policy framework is basically, I'm sending an email, it goes out to a mail server out there, I can either send from my laptop or someone else's mail server, and the inbound mail receiver gets it, and he goes, which domain is this from? Right, so looks down and goes, okay, this is from, let's pick one, RSA. So then I would go back, and I go back to RSA's DNS record, and we're going to do this here in a second, so stay tuned. I would look and say, what is your policy for sender policy framework? And it's going to tell me which IP addresses should be sending mail on behalf of RSA. Right? So then I would go back here, and I would decide, is this authenticated or not? Did this email come from some random IP address, or did it come from the IP address ranges or IPs that are authenticated to send on behalf of RSA? Now, it gets a little bit more complex because people can now delegate that authority. You can say, now I'm going to let Salesforce, and I'll show you an example here, I'm going to let Salesforce send on my behalf. I'm going to open up these different address ranges. But what this does is it elevates the bar for a lot of the attacks, right, that are going in. If an attacker could send a random email address from the CEO of one company to the other, from anywhere on the internet, and you guys all know this, right? It's not a surprise. But people click on it. Right? So you can throw out a lot of junk by just saying, was this really an email coming from that network? That elevates, right, the difficulty there. So the methodology we use to look for this is we look to see, does their SPF record meet the RFC? We said you probably shouldn't need to send from more than 200,000 hosts. We didn't pick an arbitrary limit there. We looked at the number of hosts that Google uses to send all their mail from. They use about 200,000, so we thought if Google can do that, pretty much any other organization probably could send from about 200,000 hosts. And then a bunch of other things kind of into the RFC and sort of cleanliness around that. Say, hey, that's a strong SPF record. The other one is we say it's fair if it's very open and permissive. So we say it may be at least valid, but it's allowing very permissive sending, which is, I only have to get my attacker node into the network on that network of those couple 100,000 machines. And then I can send and I'd be basically authenticated. Right? So the broader that sending network from is, the more it's just what we call less effective. Right? And I'll show you one here which is really, in my opinion, ineffective. And then when you go down to invalid, missing a variety of reasons. They just didn't have one. Right? They're doing have multiple SPF records, which is pretty fantastic. I'll show you a circular reference, which is one SPF record refers to another, which refers back to the same one. And there are some that basically permit anything. They think they have an SPF record and they have a setting which basically says, ignore everything that you just saw. So it's effectively invalid. And I'll show you examples of all of these. So what I wanted to do to make this interactive is actually show you how you can do this. So if you wanted to actually see one of these, one that I thought was pretty good, and this actually changed on me this morning, so yeah, I just have to watch this stuff, it's very dynamic. This is Aetna. And so if you look here at Aetna, which is actually pretty good, this is, here you just got some random stuff, and people put all sorts of weird things in their text record. Looks like some key material. When we look at it, it looks like some sort of key material. And then here, this VSDF that says, hey, you can send stuff from a mail server, so in your DNS, what are your mail server look up, and then it lists these IP addresses. And it's actually a small set of IP addresses. And then, it used to be good, and that's when I put this together. And then I just saw allow from Salesforce. And so if you actually leave a lookup on Salesforce, you get to see all the IP address ranges that Salesforce allows for. And in this case, all those IP addresses opens it up to well over 200,000 IP addresses that it opens it from. Another interesting one here, I'll show is Apple. I'll bring this one up. Play along at home, maybe looking at these up. So Apple's SPF record, look up here, let me emphasize the size a little bit. Is up here. So Apple happens to own its /8, 17.0/8, and they're saying, okay, we're going to lock this down to the entire /8. Right? So 16 million addresses anywhere on the Apple networks. Now I can send email from whomever, right? So although they put one in place, it's super permissive, right? And so you obviously this happens. So this is one area where SPF and DKIM, these things have been around for a while. Proven effective, still not super well implemented by some of our largest companies. Let me go back here. I'll get that earlier. Okay. All right, so there's Aetna. I know we said it was strong until they added that Salesforce one that just went through, which means you got to be watching this stuff. This is all stuff you just can all do, right? Apple, we say, well, that's pretty permissive, 16.7 million addresses. And then we start to get some interesting ones that I want to show you. So this is Honeywell. Honeywell, it went through all the process. They put it together. They've got this. They do include, so they will send from there. But what they do is they have this very interesting character right there, which is the question mark all, which effectively just says go neutral. It means effectively I have an SPF record. Right, so they went through the whole process and they didn't put it in properly. Right, very interesting, right? Easy to do. This is AIG. AIG went through, they laid all these networks, and then they include this eBills.ad. Go look at it, follow that up. There actually is no SPF record for eBills.ad. Right, so obviously there's a problem here again. They get to the top of this. High-performing organizations, so that we see, are right on top of this. Some of the best financial services companies, global investment banks, 5 IP addresses in their SPF record. Right? They can do it. They know how to lock this thing down, and they keep it up to date. Right? So this is where you're looking for indications of how organizations perform. I'll show you another one, Acme Packet. Oh, this one's fun. Acme Packet is done by Cisco. Some Cisco folks here. But it's very interesting. If you look at that, like for the most part, that looks pretty good, except that the way that this is evaluated, you have each field separated by quotes. The way that this gets processed is it pulls it all together to one string. So then this basically becomes one long string of invalid SPF record. Right? So easy to mess this stuff up. And I'll go 2 more. Qualcomm, this is an interesting one. Part of that SPF RFC says, I don't want to have too many domain lookups, because what you can do is do an denial service. You have like, okay, you just keep domain lookups, keep going forever. So they cut it off at 10. Qualcomm has too many, right? So they actually exceed that. And then this one is kind of fun. This is Walmart. Right? What you see here is Walmart, including Wall-Mart, and Wall-Mart, including Walmart. Right? And you can just see how it's working. And the thing that surprised us, these are some of America's best companies, right? I'm sure they have huge budgets, very sophisticated, great IT staff. It's hard to do this well, right? It's hard to do this well. Those want to measure it and hold folks accountable on that. So the question is, well, how do we do as an S&P 500 group? So when we look at this, roughly 58% added value for records of the S&P 500. Now this was surprising to me. I wasn't expecting this. And then, good 25% that actually had done it well. This actually has systemic effects, right? Because it's actually not impacting the organization themselves really at all. It's impacting who they're working with. It's an ecosystem risk problem.
So they're not doing it properly because of ignorance.
Well,
so the benefits of not doing it properly.
So there's some idiosyncrasies in the way different mail servers process these things. And so what you're going to do, and Jan had some of these issues with the other groups, as soon as you start to lock that down, you're going to reject more mail. Right? Things get dropped. When people drop legitimate mail, and people complain. And so I don't know how much of it is ignorance. It's very easy to fat finger something. And we see literally stuff that's been copy and paste. My favorite one I didn't show is somebody took Google's SPF record and put it as their own. It's like, oh yeah, we need to lock this thing down, so I'll just take Google's. Which is kind of funny, but I think folks are making effort. It's sometimes hard to get these things right. I mean, you guys know the security is how it works. I don't think it's so much ignorance, but some of these things you just got to be watching and get it right. Now, what I'm not saying here is FDF, how they do their SPF is condemning their entire security programs. I'm just like, what can I measure that's an indication of how an organization is executing? And what we see time after time is high-performing organizations getting this small stuff right. So then I wanted to move over to something that's very apropos at this moment. Yes?
So I'm kind of curious, if I were living in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, where the main name is .ae, would I have any reason to be concerned about Aetna using me as domain?
Well, so I don't know, they may have a partnership. What I would do as an attacker is I'd go take that domain, I'd open up SPF record of the world and send it from wherever, and it's all validated. All right, that's kind of what I think about breaking everything. So yeah, I mean, there are downstream impacts around all this stuff. So one of the big ones, and this is obviously, many of you are familiar with the OpenSSL issue that we just announced yesterday, which allows for getting random pages of memory out of a server without any authentication, which is like, whoa, mind-blowing that they can actually pull the key material right off these servers. So they can basically impersonate, they can encrypt, and once you have the key on the server, it's all pretty much game over. And so I reran some of this stuff looking at this, the vulnerability that came out. But when we ran this, we use the SSL Labs methodology. If you're familiar with SSL Labs, their website, I'll show you here in a second. You should point at an SSL server, and it's not just the certificates, it's how the server is configured. It's like, okay, let's look at the good letter grades. Right? And you get an F, maybe you have domain mismatches. Your certificate's not valid, you self-sign. Right? You don't know the certificate authority, and you're using really weak or exploitable protocols or weak ciphers. So that's not all methodology. It's like, well, how are we doing in the S&P 500 for running our secure communications? Right? I'll talk about the NSA and whatever. This isn't done properly. You can grab any data back and forth between companies or consumers. Right? So let me, at this point, I'm going to switch over again and show you actually how to run it. So here I ran it against Google, and Google gets A's, which is fantastic. You would expect it to do this. It's nice for me to actually measure it and verify it. Right? And I look at that. Google runs, I know a lot of the folks there, they run a tremendous ship. Hard to do that at scale, and they do a pretty good job at it. So then I kind of want to march down here and go to Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley, Investment Bank, and based on what you see here, B, B, and C, right? So it actually gets worse. Then let's look at Symantec, B, B, A minus, and then here we're talking City, right? So according to what I just ran this morning, it's not vulnerable to the Heartbleed, which is the vulnerability I talked about in OpenSSL, but it's supporting SSL 2, which in this, I don't get too tech on everybody, but basically that's been known to be exploitable forever. And here we are, one of the world's largest banks, huge security staff. And as you guys go to the website, Plug City, you'll see this, right? Issues there. MasterCard, an F and a B. There you go, get down to SSL again. Now the vulnerable there in the middle. Bring up Iron Mountain. This was an interesting one, right? As many folks who trust Iron Mountain for secure storage of the documents, etc. Iron Mountain has quite a few issues. I'll bring it up. Right, there's a certificate there. Certificate is untrusted. It's worth the Zell, it's worth down in the middle. And this is an interesting one in light of what's happening here with the OpenSSL issue. If somebody gets your keys on your server, they can go back and decrypt recorded traffic, right? And so where a lot of folks have been focusing now on, do they have forward secrecy, which is even if somebody got your cert, they couldn't decrypt the traffic going forward. The scary thing about the current OpenSSL issue is right now you wouldn't even see it in your logs, according to from what I read. It doesn't look like anything bizarre. Someone just visits it, they're pulling your key off, and who knows how many keys are already out there, and now someone can just replay the traffic and decrypt it. So this is not one of those set it and forget it, right? This is one of those, you have to be on top of this, you have to be executing at a high level to handle all of these different servers. And the interesting one here is if we don't do this right, we train people to have the wrong behaviors. And if I'm a partner and I'm working with them, I'll go to https://www.icon.com. I'm assuming if I'm locking my security down, I'm assuming I'm going to go over SSL to them. They're going to have a cert, right? And that's going to be a trusted communication. Now what happens? Go in your browser now, that's what you get. Now this is one that obviously Mozilla and these other guys have put in place to warn you, hey, there's probably something wrong here, you might want to get out of it. But if you're looking at it and going, no, that's all right, man. I got it. Right? It's one of those, okay, be afraid. Most people are just going to blow right through that. And you start thinking about things that we can measure, behaviors, users almost always break down there. Right? And at that point, you get the man in the middle of most of that communication that I'm articulating. So the question is, how did we do for the S&P 500? Guesses? Not fantastic. So about a third of the companies that had SSL, and that we have to make sure that we see that. Just because you have a web server up, it doesn't have SSL doesn't mean anything, right? And so from our view, hey, we're just saying, if you decided to put up an SSL server, how did you configure it? Right? If you actually took the steps. So here we're saying, roughly a fifth, we didn't see anything. We looked at subdomains and things like that, which is fine. You can just put up a website for oil and gas. You don't have any login into it. That's fine. But for people that did, we got to sell the distribution. And you start to get the C's and F's. That's starting to look pretty shady. The thing that just blew me away when I showed you Google was like 14.5% couldn't get it right, or got it right. These are our best companies. So what I also wanted to show, just like Kevin this morning, as I was thinking about this SSL issue, we went and looked at the data that we have and the servers that we know are running OpenSSL 101 or we're running them as of 2 days ago. There are thousands, and if we look at the ones that are just running OpenSSL period, which is probably more, maybe not, but you're talking millions. So now, whoever's exploiting this is getting to millions of servers and keys, and who knows what kind of havoc can be wreaked on that. What we're trying to use, well, let's measure it. And already, these are 64 of the top 10,000 sites. That's a good part of the internet. Most of the internet traffic goes to Google, Facebook, Twitter. Those are our folks that can be exploited or could be exploited as hours ago. Right? Challenge here is how quickly do they respond? And that's what we're going to be watching, is how quickly do folks respond and get this up, because that says a lot about your organization. Everyone's running the same software. There's nothing we can do, right? We're all running it. We all try to keep it up to date. But, Chris was like, there's a lot of problems in software, right? But the folks, the guys who get it and respond and iterate quickly are high performers. The question we'll have to watch as we measure this is how quickly the companies S&P 500 and the globe respond to this. My bet is we'll probably still see millions of servers months from now that have addresses. So stay tuned for one of the next talks. So the next area that I wanted to talk about is what we call evidence of system compromise or evidence of network hijacking. And when we think about this, without sort of disclosure issues, there's a tremendous amount of information you can learn about an organization by watching what's on the outside. Right? And so from this vantage point, we're all completely outside in. And a lot of this data here in the Source Cloud is available out there, right? So you can see folks who are participating in botnets or DDoS. Because why? Because it's flowing across the internet. You can see where it's coming and where it's going. And so you can map it back to who is that, right? And so we spend a lot of time looking at a variety of different classes of this information. A lot of this stuff would be in a scan block list, no bad servers, other sorts of things. But we watch that and say, well, whose infrastructure is that on? How quickly are they resolving? And how are they getting these sorts of issues and how long? And then we map that to our organization. So one thing that would be interesting for this group is this here is an Owen curve plot of the entire IPv4 average space as of a couple months ago, over a week. So each block here represents 1/256th of the internet. And this block up here, that top left, is 0.0.0/8. So each one is a class A or own block. Each one of those dots represents an item or an observable that I showed you in the previous slide. And what you get to see here, this kind of blew us away, is that is not uniformly distributed. If it were, if everyone was behaving the same way, if everyone was doing the same thing, you'd see uniform dots. What you see is a lot of black spots, and for for most of these black spots, that's actually the loopback. That's 127/8, rather than just the 10 dots. So a lot of these things should be routed anyway, right? This is all multicast and reserve space. And a lot of those black boxes are DoD. The DoD has a lot of the internet. And there are a lot of Class A's that aren't even routing BGP. So basically they're squatting on a Class A. And one of the real interesting things here that we saw is that networks have very different profiles. It's very dynamic and it's changing over time, right? And so when you look at this and we start to zoom in, networks are companies. So we look even at the 5/8, and what we get to see inside of there is that 860 organizations that we mapped inside of that /8. And I called out a couple of the companies here. And the reason I did that is because they're from different industries, right? When you look at this, this is not, it's not uniform in here either, right? And so these different kind of companies also have different levels of performance with respect to what we can measure. And from this vantage point, we don't necessarily know if it's the database server or how much data is lost. We don't know that, right? But we're getting what we can measure and how we can use that for risk management. And so one of the key things that we're trying to measure here is, well, how are we doing with respect to the S&P 500? I'll think back to that. What are the metrics? And when we looked at this, we plotted this and said, what percentage of the companies in the S&P 500 had these sorts of botnet issues that we can see that are observable over 2013. And what was very interesting to us is we plotted it month over month. Is however you want to run that regression, it's going up, right? And so it doesn't bode super well for the health of the S&P 500, the things that we can observe. And we have, these are machines that are communicating after botnets, control servers, etc. And we saw that go from about 68% up to 82%. And these are Zeus, zero access, ransomware. These things are pretty pervasive inside of these companies. And this is where we start to see the mismatch between the optimism bias and the reality when we can actually get to measure. And from our vantage point, we don't know what broke down. We don't know if this was a poor patch management problem, if it was poor user training. We don't know if they just haven't invested in the right technologies. What we can see is we're starting to get to, there's a separation on how companies are performing. One of the charts here, this is the entire S&P 500. When we look at different sectors inside of the S&P 500, we see that financial services performs the best. And when we tried to study that, we talked with quite a few people, and they said, well, financial services has been managing risk a lot longer than most of these other industries. It's an executive level issue, and this is a kicker, and I don't know how many of you guys are free market economists, but they're regulated. They have to answer to somebody. Somebody is looking over their shoulder saying, what are you doing for this? Show me that, right? This is the last time I'm going to say compliant, but it's part of their processes to comply and to meet the regulators. They're having to do something that's working because we get to see the data. And so when we think about patterns for success, for things that are working, and I thought it was great that Justine validated this morning, is there are folks who are doing, have programs and processes that are working, and it's not just dogma, it's much opinion, we're actually seeing the output of it in the data, which I think is just fantastic. Because now we're going to start to have patterns for things that actually work. Whereas like instead of just saying, hey, reset your password every so often, they decide, what are the guys doing over here? Because whatever they're doing works really well. And they say, hey, we got all passwords for all cat cards. I think that's sort of the next layer here. Hopefully I can come back in another year or two and tell you what they're doing to achieve those outcomes. Right now, at least what we're just measuring is we're seeing a distribution of outcomes, but it doesn't look fantastic for some of our largest companies. The other part of this is, if this is that bad for our best companies who have the most money and talent to go behind it, it looks even worse for the kind of middle and small companies. So with that, I'll kind of open it up to questions, and that's all the material that I have. Happy to follow up. Yes?
How much of the fact that the finance people perform better is because they've been at the game longer, and for many of them, the computing is the core of their business, almost all their business.
So I wish I had a definitive answer for you. When I talk with a lot of folks, because we wanted to try to find a reason. They've had a lot more at risk, right? They have money to lose. The bottom of that stack was technology companies, which kind of surprised us too. But technology companies don't have to answer to regulators. They really don't have customer accounts at risk, right? In terms of the data, they can lose information that they can. So I think part of
always had to wear shoes.
that's very interesting that you said, right? So executing at a very high level from a risk management standpoint, security is not the top priority that I see in technology companies. I see that absolutely in financial services. They're still trying to make money, but they've blended it into a risk management process. So they have a chief risk officer who's thinking about that and looking across the enterprise. Yes?
Have we seen any statistics around the rise of SOX and things like that at companies like that, and like technology specifically? Working for a software company, I know we do a SOX report for our company, and I see that as us being an outlier a lot and actually doing SOX. Are we seeing a rise in that? Do we have percentages on where that's going, both the S&P and across the board?
So great question. I don't know. I would love to have that data. One of the main reasons we're doing what we're doing is because our customers felt that these self-assertions and these SOCs weren't really worth having done, right? Because it means that certain controls existed. It doesn't tell you how good you are at executing on those controls, right? And they're really trying to get to is controls effectiveness as opposed to controls existence. And so a lot of these other sorts of audits are statements and assertions, attestations to controls existence and processes existence as opposed to process effectiveness. So I'd love to get more of that data as it becomes available. Yes?
What's the base for this right here?
This is us. So this is all the data we collect. We have our own sensors and we partner with security companies, boutique companies across the globe that's measuring this stuff. So it's billions of records coming in every day. Yes?
Do you have any way to correlate what you collect with PCI compliance?
We do. So, but only a fraction of it. So certain folks, if you go to the Visa website, you can see folks who self-assert that they're PCI compliant. But it's a small sample, right? And that would be something that would be interesting to show. When we look at that kind of stuff, we don't see a high correlation, unfortunately. And part of it is, well, people asserting that they're PCI compliant, that they were actually compliant, which I didn't want to say compliance too much, and then if anything that they did for compliance actually worked, right? And so effectively, the next thing we want to be able to do is look at the folks who are PCI compliant, look at who were their auditors that did the PCI compliant, see if there's some correlation there as well. Yes?
Follow up, do you get any pushback or do you get cooperation from the partners?
So we haven't had any pushback. I think generally folks recognize that we want to improve in an industry, and as we're maturing as an industry, we need to be able to measure this stuff. We need to be adults about it and realize it's hard to do. Let's measure it and understand where we go here, right? And so I think for the most part, people are trying to embrace measurement and metrics that are going to help us understand where we are and then where to be for improvements.
Moving that across to the cloud security alliance, which is basically self-assertion.
Yes, however, so stay tuned, but spoke a lot with the Cloud Security Alliance. They are moving to a continuous monitoring type of framework, which is, let's hold people accountable, let's get metrics, and let's watch this stuff. This is exactly where we try to focus is. You can do your assertions, you can do your audits, but it's ongoing performance. And I think the Cloud Security Alliance now has a working group to watch for to do continuous monitoring because this is very dynamic.
Right? That's where more and more people's ideal will be done.
Exactly. Yeah.
That we turn it in.
But it's running on some infrastructure somewhere, attributed to somewhere, and that's what we want to measure, because you need to hold somebody accountable. Yes?
So, one of the things you notice with that is that, they hold out this Salesforce, so not only do I have my directors, but other people also have directors.
Yeah.
What is it after that, and this is sort of like externally?
So that is a challenge, it's just that second order.
Yeah.
That's something that our customers are really focused on because they sometimes are held accountable for the partners of their partners, right? And that one, they can't audit that, right? And so for us, because we do ratings on these companies, because we're producing this analysis, we're able to look at that and start these dialogues in a very data-driven way, which is hey, we've seen these types of issues. Explain how this impacts our data. Hey, how are you accounting for these problems? Tell me about your process, because I've seen this kind of thing. A lot of times, unfortunately, it's the first time these companies are seeing these issues, which says a lot about their organization, right? It's like, hey, whoa, I didn't know about that. Oh, well, let's see where things broke down, let's go through it. So I believe that we have to introduce more transparency in the process. Sometimes this data makes people uncomfortable. I hope there's no one from these organizations that may feel comfortable. I wanted to make sure you could go and see that data yourself. But I think as we evolve, as we do better risk management, and we have metrics, we'll be able to hold people accountable and figure out what we're doing. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.